how can we figure out who you are when you come through the front door so I can lead you to the right room?
Especially like when you didn't have much of a brand in the market, you're trying to get that traction. What are some of the things you tried then? And then how did that evolve as you scaled?
Cold calling.
You cold called even though your product starts at $59 a month?
Oh no, we cold called when it was $4 per month.
The math on that is really confusing.
Yeah, I guess when you have 12 products, you can eventually do that.
You have to try things that don't scale. And sometimes you have to find ways to scale things that don't scale.
But there are all sorts of crazy ways to acquire a customer. We were going to do cigarettes, but the marketing team said we couldn't do that one.
Got to do zins now these days, right? Get your own pack. What is a way in which your end customers receive jobs or business requests? They cannot easily ignore that channel. Therefore, your conversion will necessarily be higher than other channels that might be easier for you to scale, but you have to think not necessarily what's easier for you to scale, but what is best for your end customer.
I feel seen right now, but not in a good way, because my whole prediction post is just going to be saying it's going to be bigger. It's going to be huge.
It's agentic AI in finance. It's going to take off.
We're going to have to go back to the lab on that one, Kyle. Thanks.
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyar and CFO CJ Gustafson share smart takes on growing revenue and running a company, pricing, unit economics, AI, leadership, candid insights for CEOs, CFOs, and CROs, or anyone else aspiring to climb to the C-suite. This is Mostly Growth.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You just launched your new AI product. The new pricing page looks great. I'm talking crisp. But behind it, last-minute glued code, messy spreadsheets, and running ad hoc queries to figure out what to bill. Customers get invoices they can't understand. Engineers are chasing billing bugs. Finance can't close the books. Well, with Metronome, you hand it all off to the real-time billing infrastructure that just works. Reliable, flexible, and built to grow with you. They turn raw usage events into accurate invoices, give customers bills they actually understand, and keep every team in sync in real time. Whether you're launching usage-based pricing, managing enterprise contracts, or rolling out new AI services, Metronome does the heavy lifting so you can focus on your product, not your billing. That's why some of the fastest growing companies in the world like OpenAI and Anthropic run their billing on Metronome. Visit metronome.com to learn more. That's metronome.com. As a CFO, you're expected to bring clarity to everything, including how your company manages ownership. The tools you use should make that easier, not harder. But when they come with hidden fees, data you can't always trust, and support you can't rely on, you end up with more frustration than clarity. That's where Pulley comes in. Pulley is a cap table management platform built for finance leaders who need accurate, decision-ready data from a system that works for your business, not against it. With Pulley, you get intuitive workflows, audit-ready reporting, and support you can count on, all backed by predictable pricing you can plan around, so you can stay compliant and make smarter decisions about your company's future. Manage everything from fundraise modeling to ASC 718 reporting to custom liquidity programs, all on one trusted platform. Hundreds of high-growth companies like Linear, Fathom, and Runway trust Pulley to help turn ownership into a strategic advantage. And joining them is now easier than ever. You can switch to Pulley in as little as 5 days. And for a limited time, they're offering 25% off your first year. To claim your exclusive offer, visit pulley.com/mostlymetrics. That is pulley.com/mostlymetrics. Please, guys, I really need this. pulley.com/mostlymetrics.
Welcome back to another episode of Mostly Growth. Joining us today is Roland Ligtenberg. Things you might not know about Roland: he is a sailor, a drone pilot, an ex-dive master, a former semi-pro poker player, an EDM promoter. Oh, and he's the co-founder of a company called Housecall Pro, which started in 2013, now doing hundreds of millions in ARR. It's a home services business selling into the trades. He is SVP of Growth and Innovation there. Welcome, Roland.
I'm glad to be here. This is awesome, Kyle.
We need to talk about your hobbies. You do way too many interesting things. I feel so boring by comparison. So I saw that you were a semi-pro poker player. Like, how can you tell if your opponent is bluffing?
That's a great question to ask. I think when I was maybe it was 18, 19 or so, that's when party poker back in the days. I'm dating myself a little bit here. When you could play back in the day, and Poker Stars was big, and then Full Tilt kind of came on board. So that's when I started to have enough time to actually do well enough in poker online to play, and mostly just math there. I'm terrible at live poker. I'm terrible at telling whether or not someone's bluffing. The reality is if you play things very mathematically correct over thousands and thousands of hands, then you do pretty well. I was able to buy a boat and start a dive business. So one of those things went into the different hobby, and they kind of all rolled together.
The more money you get, the more eccentric you can become, I guess.
Kind of, although, I did have the boat when I was 21. So I think I kind of did things in reverse. I definitely don't have a boat anymore. Those things are way too expensive.
Roland, do you feel like you missed your window with the live poker being streamed now with all the celebrities? I feel like it's making a comeback.
I hate not to be good at something, and you just have to dedicate so much time in studying every single hand. And now with a 20-month-old daughter almost here, I have zero time on my hands. So while mathematically I could be playing pretty correct, I would do terrible on any kind of stream these days. But I still love to play from time to time in home games and things like that.
Nice. I think you could beat Jake Paul or the Nelk Boys.
Probably. I will say there's a lot of learnings from poker that you can apply to any kind of startup mentality when it comes to EV, especially when you're thinking about things that are growth and when you're trying multi-channel approaches and how much you apply to each one and what's the EV of each thing you do in any given set of time. So I think there's so many great pieces of poker that transcend just poker in general, but just life. There's a great book.
Oh, Thinking in Bets.
You're Thinking in Bets. That's right. That's right. And so I have it on one of my books. I think it's one of the white ones over there-ish. But that's a great book.
I love how you know your books by color.
My wife's help, because my ADD would not be able to do any of that stuff. So I just got my tiki mugs, my books, and my Buzz Lightyear that's hanging out there, and the childhood memories, which is my original Super Soaker right up there that you can only buy on eBay, and that I won't tell anyone what I spent for it.
I did want to ask you one other thing about your hobbies. So saw you were an EDM promoter back in the day. CJ here is like, I don't know how you describe his music taste, emo bands from the early 2000s. Who he listened to in high school and he still listens to. But who's the best EDM band or DJ that you're listening to right now?
Something super generic that everyone's probably listening to is Rufus Du Sol, but it's just a really good vibe. On vinyl, I just love Daft Punk, which is not even really EDM, but kind of ish. But that on vinyl is amazing.
Does tropical house count as EDM in your opinion? I'm a big tropical house person, but I feel like it's kind of the ugly stepchild of EDM.
I still love Kygo, but he was kind of like, I don't know if the originator, but that kind of style, that kind of vibe. But I remember going to one of his sets in San Diego where I used to live. I love it. Kygo's, I'm definitely a big fan of many of his songs and the way that he kind of brought that back.
CJ, it is a subgenre of music. The best way to describe it, I think, is the music that's playing when you're sitting by a pool at a hotel.
Yeah. Like a pool party. It's like a chill EDM pool party.
I listened to this guy, Sam Felt, who is from Amsterdam.
Oh, that's the one I got wrong in our guess, the SaaS founder.
It is. I played this game with CJ where he had to guess whether someone was a pop star or a SaaS founder. The topic CJ was most excited to cover with you today was the layer cake strategy. So I'll pass it over to you, CJ.
So you're in vertical SaaS. I'm obsessed with how vertical SaaS companies sequence their products and layer on different types of monetization and things that different users can buy, because you can monetize different layers of the ecosystem. I'm so curious to know what your experience was starting with one product and kind of building that up over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So, at Housecall Pro now, we have well over a dozen products or so. And they're a blend of SaaS ARPA add-ons and Fintech blends of different things, whether it's the traditional like payments Fintech business or consumer lending, business lending, anything that pay as you go. We've got all kinds of different products that we have blended into here now. My only warning to a lot of founders, and this is maybe a little bit of a blunder here, is when people start to layer on too much cake too quickly. You got to have a really good foundation. You got to have a base cake of your layer before you can earn the right to more layers to that cake. Because the reality is you have to have good kind of core metrics on that initial layer because if that's like too thin and you start slapping a whole bunch of stuff on top of that, you're not really going to earn the right to be able to sell these additional pieces or build these other extra layers of the cake.
What does that mean for you? Is that 50 million ARR, 100 million, 20 million? How should a founder think about that?
Yeah. So at Housecall Pro, we're a little different. We started with payments right out of the gate. But it was because originally we were kind of a marketplace where it was Uber for X. So it was Uber for home services, where we had a consumer side and the pro side. And so we had payments via credit card right out of the gate. A couple of years into it, we pivoted because the marketplaces are really hard to build, especially when what the user wants versus what service is delivered are wildly different. So when you book an Uber, you're going from A to B. It doesn't really matter what car you get into. You just get into a black one or a white one or a fancy one or a non-fancy one. Home services, the user can say, hey, my water doesn't work. It could be a $50 unclog the toilet kind of a fix because someone flushed a superhero down the toilet. It could also be a full sewer mainline repipe, and cost you $15K. So the same thing that the user requests is not the end output, right? And so in the beginning, we started with payments right out of the gate. But from an ARR perspective, when should you start? I think, if you are doing a kind of a system of record, vertical SaaS style thing, pretty early on, you need to think about what are the main payment rails in which your users get paid. Is it ACH? Is it credit card? Is it cash? Cash is still king in many industries, but what is kind of that second most thing? And, when you think about layering that on, it needs to become a part of the core piece of your software, because that should be a differentiator for you. 10 million of ARR or even a little bit before then is totally appropriate for one type of fintech monetization strategy. But don't start going crazy and then go sell payroll and then go sell accounting and then go sell all of the things all before 10 million. That's too much of a distraction. And nor have you really earned the right at that point from a distribution perspective to really be able to get the adoption that you need to be able to make it worth it. Because it's a lot of engineering cost and there's a lot of things you could probably focus your time and energy on before that.
So did you find your wedge in competitive moat by becoming a source of record or a way that kind of dealt with either the front of the house or the back of the house in a way that was essential for their workflows?
You use 100% of Housecall Pro or you use 0%. And by that, I mean, you can't just do pen and paper for 50% of the jobs and then use Housecall Pro for the other 50%. If you want to get that full accurate picture, you're going to be doing everything kind of inside of Housecall Pro. And so, yeah, it definitely is a wedge in the sense that you're all in or you're all out. When you're all in, you're really focused on kind of the core parts of the business, which for Housecall Pro is, scheduling, invoicing, and payments. Can you keep the calendar? Can you know where, your guys and gals are out on the road? And can you get paid for the work that you do? And can you accurately show that to the homeowner? And can you receive payment for the service you rendered? And so those kind of are the three core things which all of our Housecall Pro users do that are active and paying us. And then you've got, all of the other layers of the cake. Home services, yeah, sure, that's vertical, but we have 55 different verticals. So people are like, yeah, sure, okay, vertical SaaS. But, and you can find other vertical SaaS companies that only deal with one subcategory for one of the industries, one of the trades that we have too. So we're definitely broader than one may think, even though our category is vertical SaaS. There's a lot of different verticals here.
That's going to be super hard because a landscaping business has very different needs and may even schedule or invoice a different way than an electrician.
That's true. In landscaping example here, you're getting a lot more recurring jobs. The same customer booking you over and over versus an electrician is like, if you do the job right, hopefully it's a one-off, and so do you get paid COD? Do you have a card on file, or are you not really doing card on file because you don't do recurring services for that same customer? So even within those core pieces of the platform, there is differentiation and different things that you need to build.
One of the things that I've struggled with some of these vertical SaaS products, so you said you have a dozen products. How do you think about pricing and packaging? Because you want to monetize each product separately, but also like your customers aren't ready to buy 12 things at once. What's the sequencing there? How do you keep things simple for the customer, but also have expansion revenue?
So my answer here is that is always evolving. You're never going to nail it. And I think also in the world of AI, it adds a whole different kind of a vector onto it as well. But I'd say in general, Housecall Pro, we try to keep the kind of the core parts of the platform very straightforward and packaged nicely. And in our world, we kind of have a basic plan kind of for the one-person shop. Then we have like an essentials plan that covers, most sub $1 million shops. And then we have kind of our enterprise plan, which does things above that. Remember, I say enterprise, but in reality, we're talking like million to 10 million, maybe $20 million companies. So that's kind of our span that we have to do. But those are the core packages. And then from there, we have different add-ons and different pieces. These are kind of our core plans that you're seeing right here. And then from here, you can add and mix and match different pieces on. And you can kind of see those if you scroll over solutions. So if you are like an HVAC company or a plumber, you're probably using service plans. But if maybe you're a handyman, maybe you're not. Not all pros want to track all of the trucks with vehicle GPS because they don't believe in doing that. I think it's a good idea to do that. And so that's an add-on, There's kind of in our world where it's like, well, how do you price that many different things? You got to get the basics right. The essential part of your platform, you have to really understand and know. And then from there, especially if you've got lots of different sub verticals or other unique needs, what are the different ways that you can price them appropriately for any given vertical by size? So if we think about kind of our internal segmentation, you've got trades and you've got size, and then you have, are they a growth or efficiency style company too? Are they looking for growth or are they just looking to stay the same size and become more efficient? So if you multiply that matrix together, all of a sudden, imagine the PMM's job. Trying to package and price and talk about this. I mean, you're running a huge matrix, but that's what we do.
It's rare for me to see vertical SaaS companies that have this kind of get started or free trial call to action and that are able to sell from $59 a month, getting all of this stuff up to, likely thousands and thousands of dollars per month for really complicated customers that need everything. But managing the simplicity and the scale from small to, extra large spend is super impressive.
It is hard. I will say, the other pricing strategy is just like book a demo, call for pricing, kind of a strategy, and then try to price each person individually. And yeah, if you're going super enterprise, there's so many different levers, that you can pull, and packaging and support and contract length and terms and all of those. But when you're serving a market, where you've got millions of potential customers, you have to have both a PLG and an SLG based approach because you can't just win picking one. And so that's a common blunder that I see a lot of startup founders make too, is they pick one path and they're like, we are only PLG or we are only SLG. And you can really pigeonhole yourself really fast. I think starting SLG gives you a lot of learning in the early days. But, if you're signing up thousands of businesses on any given month, you can't do that from just an SLG based approach. You have to have a mix or a blend. And so for us, it's about how can we figure out who you are when you come through the front door so I can lead you to the right room. Each room's got a different kind of an approach, but you have to make it very easy to at least go through that first front door because you need to earn the right to have that conversation to figure out, what's behind, the next stage.
When do you kind of broach this upsell conversation with customers? Do you wait until someone's, been successful with one product and then start recommending other products? Do you have more of an account management team that's doing the upselling? Like how does that work in managing this customer lifecycle?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And a lot of people always ask me that because it's very curious. Sometimes it's pain-based and sometimes it's time-based. So sometimes they'll mention something like, my guys, I just don't know where they are, and the salesperson's like, they're hearing this if it's a demo of a certain size. And then it's like, hey, once we get you up and running here, we've also got this thing. You mentioned, CJ, that your trucks are never in the right place whenever you're trying to dispatch. Did you know we've got this integration that offers, both dash cams and GPS tracking? So sometimes it's because we can learn and hear the pain that they have and we can match it in real time because we want to be able to solve it if it truly is a true pain. But we want to make sure that the core part of the solution is what they're really buying because that's what allows us to continue to help grow their business. Our mission is to champion our pros' success. We can only get there if we're offering them things that they actually need. So it's a mix of that. So we'll have a kind of a first sales motion, our first onboarding motion, really to make sure that our pros are able to get the most value from the core part of our platform, which is the mission that we deliver. And then we have another secondary team as well, our success advisors that, check in every once in a while, depending on, company size, depending on vertical, that goes, hey, CJ, it looks like you've grown. How are you running your payroll these days? Oh, you're using ADP? I'm sorry. That must be so brutal. I've got something that ties in directly to all your commission calculations directly inside of Housecall Pro. Do you have, 10 minutes to take a quick look? It's almost the new year and I want to make sure you start off right. How's that sound? And then Boom. All right, let's get you on that payroll demo. It's one of those things where it's a combo of things and there's no hard and fast rule, but there's just a big matrix, and you need I think probably from a framework perspective, I break it down is someone mentioning a pain for which you have a solution? If so, feel free to change your path with them, right? And maybe offer it sooner or faster or at a time when maybe normally you wouldn't. If they don't mention it, don't mess things up and get them distracted by all these other bells and whistles, and now they feel overwhelmed, right? Because if they're coming to you because you're like, I don't know, this Google Calendar thing just isn't working out. I can't keep track of anything. And then, my cousin logs in and all of a sudden my Google Workspaces is all messed up and I got 5 extra calendars and then everything disappeared. And you're like, okay, let's not distract them with, our expense card solution. Let's not talk about our fleet tracking. Let's not talk about, our inventory integrations. Let's not talk about all these other things that might just make them feel more overwhelmed. Even if they are sources of pain, they didn't express it. So don't confuse the situation. Go with your core first.
Do reps just get comped on the initial deal, or are your reps staying with these accounts over time to then sell these other products? I always find that's a bit of a tension too, is like, how much do they want to throw into that initial deal? Like if they're only getting comped on the first sale, they want to sell more stuff.
The first team is only getting comped on that first sale, which aligns incentives better to make sure, like, what is the thing that is your highest pain? Right? I want to get that to you. And hopefully that's what we offer as a core product. We want to make sure that they don't oversell the highest end package, and get a big commission. So clearly after 3 months, you have to evaluate, do they downsell themselves, because they got upsold into a promo? And so you have to track all of these things so they're not just putting people in the wrong package and then also not seeing success. There's a whole bunch of mechanisms from just a comp perspective, Kyle, like you mentioned, that help kind of pull back and get the right behavior to make sure, we're aligned, to make sure we're championing the process of success all the way along that sales path. Because if you don't get that path right, you might just lose the customer altogether, and you spend a lot of money just getting them to knock on that front door in the first place. And so you got to make sure you earn that CAC back as fast as you can.
Roland, can we talk about knocking on that front door? How do you find the front door? Because a lot of times these companies don't even have a website.
That's a great question. I mean, a lot of times, and here's a fun experiment for all of you three. I don't know how much you guys commute anymore, but look around for these trucks that just have phone numbers on them. Maybe not even a website. I'm not saying this is our primary path, but these are the types of customers that we deal with. They don't have LinkedIn. They don't have Twitter. They're out there. Our customers often have Facebook accounts, but they're personal accounts that happen to also work at a business page, which exists on Facebook. But, you can't just go to Claude Code and go like, hey, build me a thing that finds all the plumbers. There's ways that you can scrape and find things across, directories and things that may or may not exist on the internet. It's just a whole nother world that people don't know exist. And this is Joey's HVAC, that just runs in my local town here. And everybody knows Joey because he's always at the baseball games, sponsoring his kids' little leagues and all these kind of things. But they are the types of people that need the help that we can offer to them because they typically are using pen and paper, which is still a majority of the people that sign up for Housecall Pro.
I was CFO at a vertical SaaS company serving auto mechanics, so independent mom and pop garages. Kyle was kind enough to be one of the investors in that company. We found way more of them had Facebook pages than websites, which at first put my brain into a pretzel. And a lot of times it was like their wife who had just established a Facebook page for their garage. And then you would reach out and you get in contact with her, who would then put you in contact with Bob, who's running the shop. But Bob was under the car with a wrench. So then you have to wait to call him back at a different time. So there's this creative dance of finding them. And then there's this creative dance of how do you actually communicate with them?
If you're selling like enterprise B2B, MarTech SaaS or something like this, right? You're like, oh my God, I have to go get all these champions and, I have to get all these internal sellers. There's a whole different pitch. When you think about like gatekeepers, what are gatekeepers? But the gatekeeper, you're right. It could totally be, the spouse, of the person in charge or some other family member. Oftentimes the owners have their own phone number out there and that's their own personal cell and they have to pick up the phone too. And so I think we still have to, size the full TAM or full SAM by segment, by size, by all the things. So, we've got a whole internal team now whose sole job is just sourcing, cleaning, deduping, all of the things that you can imagine in multiple million TAM.
There are also interesting ways to acquire a customer. So we found that Google ads didn't do well for us. Most of people just still had Bing because it was downloaded on their machine when they purchased their Windows. So they weren't even using Google Chrome. We found that doing Bing ads and then giving away Yeti mugs at conferences was nuts. For a $50 Yeti mug, you could acquire a mechanic for that. We were going to do cigarettes, but the marketing team said we couldn't do that one. But there are all sorts of crazy ways to acquire a customer.
Got to do zins now these days, right? Get your own pack. Recently, we did one where we offered car washes and it's truck wash, right? And the mechanic services. And so if you had a home service truck that needed either gas, fueling, cleaning, any kind of mechanical service, oil, whatever tune-up, you could come. And so we did that, and you get a whole bunch of home service vans just running by because, they're in between jobs. And if you say, hey, look, what do you got? 15, 30 minutes, an hour? Pick from this board what you need. We would do it. And then you earn the right to have a conversation because guess what? They're not going anywhere without their truck.
Anywhere.
It's like the best way to enforce demo adherence. And so anyways, there's all kinds of fun ways, definitely in the home service space. I think, these are things where, Paul Graham's famous, do things that don't scale.
Yeah.
In industries that don't have the same digital presence and aren't as easily crawlable, you have to try things that don't scale. And sometimes you have to find ways to scale things that don't scale. Right, that maybe might not make sense to anybody else, but you're doing local meetups and giving out $500 gift cards to a local, super pro and let him buy beers for all of his buddies. Guess what? That works out great. Maybe they're fun to talk about on LinkedIn, and maybe it would get views because it is different than the rest of the marketing slop that's out there these days, being spun by AI.
I guess your audience is not on LinkedIn. I don't know that many plumbers that are on LinkedIn as often as me and CJ. But Ace, what are some of the things you tried in the early days, especially like when you didn't have much of a brand in the market, you're trying to get that traction? What are some of the things you tried then? And then how did that evolve as you scaled?
One's a clear one, cold calling. So there's a bunch of different companies that I advise and invest in, angel invest. They're always like, well, how do you get my email, click-through rates are terrible, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the number one first principle question I ask you is how do your end customers receive jobs or job inquiries? So when someone goes to find a plumber, how do they receive a call from a potential thing? I'm not saying pretend to be someone looking for a job, but if it is phone calls, then why are you trying to email these plumbers who are not checking their email, much less replying, right? And so, one of the things that we tried early on was cold calling. And back then, in the really, really early days, I started out as, SDRing my own calls and then being my own account executive and then booking my own demos and then, hiring 4 more people to then book demos. And so slowly building up that stack. But, in our space, cold calling is something that we tried early on and then it worked great. And we still do it to this day.
You cold called even though your product starts at $59 a month?
Oh, no. We cold called when it was $4 per month.
The math on that is really confusing.
Yeah, I guess when you have 12 products, you can eventually do that.
Well, but even then, back then it was just credit card processing as schedule. And so I think a lot of people are like, well, I heard online you can't build a full-on inside sales team for less than 10K ACV. You just can't make the math work. La, la, la. Or it's and then people are like, well, I could do it for 5K. Well, we did it for less than 1K back in the day. Earlier on, too, costs were different. This is back in 2013, 2014, 2015. And really 2015 is when we launched, 2015 to 2016, 2017. But then slowly we were able to increase our LTV because we dropped our churn very low for this VSMB market and found other things that we can upsell and drive NRR and GRR up. That allowed us to spend a little bit more in CAC. Then we were able to outsource, the initial calls, and so, we've got teams that, are able to call at a much more effective, cost-effective rate. It's still expensive overall from all of our channels, but it's something that's very repeatable and scalable that just can grow, especially in the early years. And it works amazing. If you're a vertical SaaS founder, you're listening to this, and you've got a large TAM, it should 100% be in your bag of tool tricks that you got to go try. Because if you've got that big juicy TAM to go after, cold calling is a great way. And so that was one of the early ways which we did it back when our product was just so cheap, didn't have much features of functionality. But the first principles way to think about this is what is a way in which your end customers receive jobs or business requests? They cannot easily ignore that channel. Therefore, your conversion will necessarily be higher than other channels that might be easier for you to scale, but you have to think not necessarily what's easier for you to scale, but what is best for your end customer. When you think about it that way, you're like, yeah, shoot, it would have been easy just to load up an instantly, account, bake a whole bunch of, emails and just start blasting them, scrape all the emails and just start sending them. You totally can. If you're small, you'll have not good conversion rates. And that might not matter when you're really small because you can still grow at whatever rate you still want to in the early days. That won't scale ultimately.
Roland, I have a question about TAM. You'd mentioned it there because I was talking to a CFO last week and he was operating in the financial manager space. So basically selling to wealth managers. And what's nice about that is you have to be registered with FINRA if you're a wealth manager. So he knew where all 76,000 of the bodies were buried, which sounds like a dream, right? You can actually pay for a list and dial into all of them. But if you're not careful, you can dial through all of them in just like 2 years if you throw enough BDRs at it. Were you ever worried about burning through your TAM?
Here's another interesting kind of a take. There's industries where there's high turnover, where there are always new people joining the market. There's always new people getting the home services space.
Yeah.
There always is. Now, just like wealth management, you can find every licensed electrician. I think there's another question you need to ask yourself is the thing that you're calling about something that will truly help them? Because if that's the case, you can never burn through a list. You're just calling them because they're not using something that will change your life. You're probably like, oh, Roland, classic sales style founder. He's the go-to-market guy. He's slick. But the reality is, like, if you believe in what you're selling, independent of the size of your SAM or your TAM, if you are cold calling and you're always cold calling with value, not just like, hey, CJ, can I get on the phone? I want to show you a demo. Like, dude, that's terrible. What if I called you and I said, hey, CJ, I see 20% of wealth managers using this new tool here. I'm just going to send it to your email. Is this still the right email? Cool, man. I'll talk to you next quarter. Whoa, what? What is this guy? And I call back again, not a quarter later, call him back a month later. Hey, you're having a good quarter? Because they'll forget when you said you call back, but they'll remember that you weren't obnoxious. And so if you always lead with value, it's going to allow you the right to have that second call, that third call, that fourth call without burning through a list. So if you're just calling just to book demos for your thing, you're going to burn through a list, especially 76,000 TAM. That's not a very big TAM. So yeah, gotta watch out because we'll call through that list in a couple days. So it's just one of those things where you have to be really careful and thoughtful and make sure you're leading with value.
Well, so Roland, it sounds like cold calling's worked pretty well. Cold email, maybe not so much. There's some community things like meetups that have been surprisingly effective. Anything else that surprised you that like ended up working better than you thought it would?
A big part of the way that we get new people and acquire them is through word of mouth. And word of mouth is one of those tricky things because here's what's going to happen. Someone's going to want to track it in a board deck. Okay. Someone want to track, how much came from word of mouth? Oh, let's do, if you try it, CJ, you'll get $50 off. And then Kyle will get $50 off of his next month's credit. You're like, that's how we'll track it. We'll build a system for that and I'll buy some cool off-the-shelf tool that will help me create referral links and codes. And this is surprising, but maybe not surprising. If you have a good product with a base of customers that will talk to one another, then you will get organic word of mouth. It's going to be hard to track. It might show up as a lot of directs, in Search Console. A lot of people just type in housecallpro.com. But you can measure it in other ways just thinking about brand. Hey, how many times have you referred Housecall Pro in the past? You can ask your customers these types of things. And so you can measure that. So when you do a checkup call on a customer, hey, CJ, I'm just checking in here. It's been a year or so since you signed up a Housecall Pro. How are things going? Great. Hey, just out of curiosity, have you recommended Housecall Pro to any of your friends so far? I'm not asking for NPS. I'm talking to this person. Okay. I'm talking to the person. Yeah. How many? Oh, 3, 4. Great. Okay. Now log it. Now just take that number, log it, create a sample. Okay. Now do that year over year, month over month, quarter over quarter, and see, is that thing increasing or growing? And so that is a really maybe surprising, unsurprising way that companies grow, but it's hard to measure. And so it's hard to just I'm going to spin up a growth team just to go do that. We've tried all kinds of things, like your thing, CJ, like Yeti mugs. Our pros love Yeti mugs. They love Yeti coolers. They love these things. Can you measure some of those things? Can you do a sweepstakes? Yeah, absolutely. You can do some sweepstakes, so you can measure some of the things, but it doesn't measure the totality. So if you're just to think about it and it's its own thing, you're like, oh, that's a small little channel. But the reality is, it could be a very significant part of your business, which it is for us.
Is AI making an impact on your go-to-market?
Yeah, I think for us, because we have so many different segments and different types of verticals, right, by size, by growth goals, efficiency goals, you can deliver a much more tailored message than you were able to before. And so if you are a small startup and if you are not thinking about the right message for the right person with AI, then you're just losing out, because the reality is you couldn't do it as an individual founder and write up a custom email for every single person you're trying to prospect. It just is not physically possible with the amount of time, but you can do it today, now, very easily. And all you need to do is go build out either skills or a nice MD file or however you're doing it, whatever your soup de jour, tool de jour is, you can go build out, here is this type of customer, here are the words on the industry. What is the jargon used in that industry to make you seem like you are someone in that industry, like you really know that industry? If you're a plumber, you're talking about fittings, you're talking about specs, you're talking about, all these different words that now all of a sudden a plumber, if they see those words somewhere scrambled in, and I'm not saying like stuff those keywords everywhere, but if you start to cycle those into just simple things, they're like, wow, this is plumbing software built for me. Sure, we're built for all the home services, but they'll feel like this is plumbing software for me. Does AI help any of this? It absolutely does, because for each different vertical, you can speak to each different customer a little bit differently. For us, some of our customers, they just want to grow their business, right? They want to grow a little mini plumbing empire and have 20 trucks on the road and 40 staff and these things. Others, they're just happy just themselves and their spouse and maybe their kid and billing out at $300 an hour because they can, because they're amazing at their job and there's very little supply. There's a lot of demand for them. They just want more efficiency. You would talk to those two different customers in entirely different ways. I would not try to encourage the small guy to grow. I would encourage them to go spend some more time with their kid at baseball, because you know what? You don't have to do the paperwork after you're done with your jobs at night. And so that pitch, that angle is different. And with AI now, I can deliver that right pitch for that each different prospect along the way. And then same for all the customers I have for all the different products that I have. Because someone that's looking to grow is going to be thinking about payroll in a different way than someone that's trying to just be more efficient. And to whom are you selling it to? So I think therein lies, you can just permutate way more than you ever were before and deliver the right message.
I guess, how are you making sure this isn't just AI generated slop, like buzzword here, buzzword there? We've got the conversion. Is this based on like, hey, you have a trial flow, you collect some data points in the trial, and this is automated follow-ups that feel personalized? We understand how this ends up kind of meeting that quality bar.
The real answer from like, how do you operationalize this, is make sure you're A/B testing all of the things. Because, even if there is a little bit of sloppiness, conversions still matter, and who is the judge, the ultimate judge of this thing? Really, it's, can you get someone to do something you want that's in the benefit of them? And if that answer is true, then you will see higher conversion rates, independent of me judging and being like, that's too many keywords. And CJ might be like, no, that's not enough. You should do more, because maybe he's the industry plumbing expert, or whatever it happens to be. If you don't have a good baseline and then measure to baseline on all of the things you're trying, it's going to be difficult to prove that what you're doing is good. And I think that's the baseline part of being a growth marketer this day and age. If you're not doing that and testing and iterating on those messages, you're going to have a tough time. And you can do that in outbound. You can do that in LCM. You can do that in the onboarding phase. You can do it on pre-enroll, post-onboarding. It's amazing, but you're right, Kyle. You don't want to get too sloppy and just stuff a bunch of buzzwords in there because you think it makes a big difference. And you're just kind of feeling like, well, I should be doing this because my boss told me I had to use AI or I get fired.
What are the top 5 AI tools in your growth stack right now?
I'm a big multi-language model user. So like I will use both Gemini 3, especially now, Claude Code for just doing things where I don't want to get BizOps or data analytics involved. I'll run ChatGPT for things that are more computational heavy. 5.1's been doing pretty good. I'll use Opus 4.5 now for a lot of those things now too. So I'll go back and forth. A lot of times when I'm generating copy, I've got a different preset in my Claude that's got my tone and voice. So I'll have a different tone and voice when I'm speaking for like other angels, investors, and more like tech jargony. I have another voice that I use when I speak to people in the trades. So if I have to write press releases, any kind of public statements, those types of things. So I use those as different voices, just styles inside of Claude. So those are kind of the primary tools across all the different pieces, but each one has their own different things. Claude is connected to internal MCPs, which lets me query a bunch of data stacks. It's also connected to my personal Gmail, my personal work calendar as well, right? So I can go across all of my emails, whether it's BD related. So I'd say like I use a lot of different tools, but what I don't use is a bunch of bespoke tools. Our internal teams will use more bespoke tools like Instantly to do like mass email, for example, right? The marketing team uses like Opus. We use Riverside for our podcast as well, right? To remix all the clips super easy. And so there's a whole bunch of different tools that have AI baked in. From a horsepower perspective, using just the native tools is probably gonna get you a lot further. Because you can tailor it in exactly the way you want. I've got custom projects for all the different things I'm working on, whether it's like the board level materials, whether it's things that I want to just from a meeting one-on-one perspective, I have different folders for those, right? And so if you can build those up with enough context, it works well. On the marketing side, there's projects that contain all of our brand, voice, how do we speak to pros, by vertical, by things. So I think that's the best way right now that I found to customize it, but there's no one tool and maybe not a lot of bespoke tools for me personally. Each different function inside the company has some of their own bespoke tools, but by and large, we're building a lot of internal tools ourselves and using less vendors to do things.
All right. Next up, it is time for our business blunders. And Kyle, I think, has a bit of a business blunder of his own.
It's officially December, right? We're recording this in December. This means we are about to be inundated by the annual predictions post. I'm guilty of this myself. I will probably do one. Anyone that has influencer anywhere in their LinkedIn description is going to put out a predictions post. But my business blunder is that the prediction posts are almost always just regurgitating things that are already happening. It's like, oh, there's going to be more AI adoption. This is going to be bigger. Like, you can't just predict things that are already happening and just say that's more. If you're coming up with one, please think a little bit outside of the box and try to think about something that is not happening, right? Please come up with those. Those are going to be much more interesting for everyone.
I feel seen right now, but not in a good way, because my whole prediction post is just going to be saying it's going to be bigger. It's going to be huge.
It's agentic AI in finance. It's going to take off.
We're going to have to go back to the lab on that one, Kyle. Thanks.
All right, Roland, do you have a business blunder?
Oh man, because you made it like so seasonal now. Now I'm like, oh shoot, do I need to give something like seasonal here?
It does not need to be seasonal.
Okay, so here's one of my favorite things here is a lot of people will skip the opportunity to thank their existing customers and not show gratitude at the end of the year. So one of the things we do at Housecall Pro is we send personalized thank you letters to customers. We used to do all of our customers by hand, which is wild. I think a common business blunder is people just will send out a very generic email that kind of goes out to their entire customer base. I think this is the time when you've got a lot of data about your customers. If you're vertical SaaS, tell them a cool stat about their business, just something really neat. A lot of people send out these generic emails, these generic happy holidays, and that's it. See you next year kind of thing. No, Doug, this is your opportunity to do something unique in a sea of just like blah. Just like I get so many things for being a customer, those type of things. Do something unique, think out of the box, even if it's only a percentage of your customers, because you can only touch them, create some magical moments with them. And you've got some really cool data on them. So give them something of value that you know about them that they don't know about themselves. And if you do that, you'll stand out and they'll remember. And when it comes Jan 1, when they're thinking about renewals, because a lot of companies sign up in the new year, they're like, oh yeah, that's cool.
To that note of these kind of very generic, like thanks for being a customer email, I saw something making the rounds on LinkedIn this week that Netflix sent out a price increase email. It was like, thank you for 10 years of being a customer. Your price increases starting January 1. Like, talk about like such a reversal. And that was like even worse than just a generic thanks for being a customer email.
It's like a double burn. It's not easy.
This is the time of year where we all hear from our local realtor.
An insurance company too.
Next up, we got pricing in the real world. CJ's got something here, and based on our company Slack, I think it's a little bit silly.
Ben can share the picture, but we're having some Christmas tree issues here today. We went out and bought a live one from the local Boy Scout troop down the street. And I've noticed some pricing discrepancies that have occurred because that's my Christmas tree when I got back from the gym this morning. It is not upright, and my dog is looking at it where he was either surprised or the culprit. But we were in Florida the past 3 years, and the prices, they were absolutely egregious. So Kyle, I think they were essentially using the fact that they had to transport it to tack on some extra margin. So the Christmas tree that I just bought from the local Boy Scouts is $85. And then they ask you for a donation. So I just rounded up and gave them $100 because I felt bad leaving without tipping them, these small children who were out in the cold. But in Florida, it was $250 for a tree that was half dead that they drove down from, they said, Vermont. Do you think that's kind of high?
$250 for a tree? Yeah, that I would certainly say that's kind of high.
It was in the 6 to 8 foot zone.
Kind of on par with what I paid. So I don't know if it's high or not. Maybe we paid a little bit less, but we bought like the hot chocolate. We bought like a little owl tchotchke, and these guys had a good way of layering on that cake. And so we bought all the other ARPA add-ons in the Christmas barn along with it.
I've discovered, it's funny you bring that up, Roland, that cutting your own tree seems to also be an add-on. So I've been looking around the towns around us, talking to friends and stuff. We had done one in the past where you cut down your own. It was $125 to cut down our own tree and do the work, which is like $40 more than it is to just buy one that's already cut down by the local Boy Scouts. So I don't know. There's a price on an experience.
Knowing you and how you did your Christmas lights, CJ, you're going to pay someone to go to the cut your own tree zone. You're going to watch them cut down the tree, and then you're going to watch them put lights on the tree, all for just a cool few $100s.
I had my mother-in-law put the ornaments on the tree while I took the kids to the park. My parents came to go get the tree with us, and they're excited. They're taking their grandkids to go and get it. We get the little children all bundled up and stuff, and we go and get the tree. And we come back, and my dad's like, "Oh, I remember taking you as kids. They used to sell them in the parking lot down by Marshall. So I took you and Tyler down there. We get out, and we look at the trees, and these are the saddest, lamest trees we've ever seen. And so we look at them, and we start to get back in the car, and the guy comes over. It's freezing cold out, and he goes, "Oh, are you looking to buy a tree?" And I'm just making small talk, and I go, "Oh, yeah, we're looking to buy a tree." He's like, "Oh, well, it's good. It's for a local charity." He's like, "What's the charity?" He goes, "Every tree you buy helps a blind child in Czechoslovakia." And my dad looks at him, he goes, "All right, well, take a tree." He's like, at that point, I couldn't say no. So we took that tree home, and we had a sad Christmas tree that year.
There is an IKEA effect to chopping down your own tree, and you're guaranteed that it's fresh. So maybe paying that extra premium isn't so premium after all, and you probably value that tree a little more because you're like, "Oh man, I got a bunch of pine sap on me and all this other thing." And so I don't know, plus $40 for experience. I think people are going to start to charge for less AI things, and that's a raw experience you can never take away. So maybe they're onto something. If you go to YouTube right now and you type in a Housecall Elf, you can see what we used to do in the Christmas time to try to get consumer users for our house call. That's a good view. So I have very fond memories of delivering lots of Christmas trees in a very non-scalable way in the early days of our startup, dressed as Buddy the Elf.
This has been awesome, Roland. Thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roland.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe. Give us 5 stars or hit like. The algorithm overlords thank you. Drink water, call your mom, and have a great day.